from the last class. God, it feels like it's been more than a week. I talked a little bit about setting up the image planes, right? So we've got this image sequence piped in, right? So we can move our image box back and forth. And I've got a couple of images to cycle. Now, you can put more than just one or two images. You can put a whole bunch of them there, right? So that they're in your viewport and you can use those as reference. So the very first frame brings everything together so I can sort of see, you know, how the objects kind of align as I'm developing them, right? So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to, any kind of overlapping object that I'm dealing with, I'm going to stash in a layer. Now, I'm leaving this as is for now. Actually, let's go back to our right view. Let's just see if there's a few things we might be able to tighten up. So I'm going to pop in here. I'm going to turn on X-ray mode. Yeah. So I'm just going to double check to make sure I've got this set up as instance modeling. I think that I do. Let's check it out. So I'm going to come over here, grab these guys. Yep. Instance modeling. Now, wow, we did cover a lot last class. So I talked a little bit about instance modeling as well, right? With instance modeling, thank you for saying I haven't done anything yet. I haven't done anything yet. I said I would talk to James, right? You guys may still be stuck with learning in the digital era, but you know, I am such a stickler for teaching you guys production-based stuff and not having you waste your time at all. I was the only person who fought viciously against contextual studies. You guys had two modules before, one called Ways of Thinking and the other one called Ways of Perceiving. And I was like, no. I'm not teaching that to my guys. That's a waste of time, right? So I don't know if you guys ever had Ways of Thinking and Ways of Perceiving. Did you guys have that? Or did I save you guys from it? I don't know. Last year you did.
Trust me, you did.
Yes. Yeah, I saved you guys from it, right? You guys don't have it this year, right? But they're trying to replace it with equally horrendous modules. So I'll see what I can do about it. Okay, so I just want to check one thing, or just show you one thing, right? So notice what happens with the instance modeling. Remember how I talked last class about an instance model is different from a copy because the instance stays connected to the original. So whatever you change on the original will change on the copy, right? So here I'll show you the difference between a straightforward copy. When I right click and I grab some vertices here, right, and I pull those guys out, over here it's done the same, right? This is going to be a huge help for us as we model our vehicles, right? So notice one thing though. When I come in here and I grab this in object mode and I move it, it doesn't work, right? It only works on the sub-object level, like vertices, edges, faces, right? So for me to get this to work, I'll just pick a sub-object, I don't know, anyone. Faces, I can pick faces, boom, grab those, and now I can move this guy. Now why I wanted to double check that was just to make sure that when I go to right view, and when I sort of fine tune this car, because I just chucked it in a hurry last class, just want to make sure that it's relatively close. Doesn't have to be bang on, not yet, right? Now what I want to do is I want to take the circles on the inside. Oh no, you guys are typing. Sorry, I missed a bunch of this. Oh, you guys are just talking nonsense. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and grab these edge loops. Now I clicked on an edge loop and double clicked it. And when I double clicked, it grabbed all of those edges that are looped together, right? So I'm gonna pop back out to perspective view and I'm gonna hit F. F will frame up on my selection, making sure that it's at the center when I rotate around. This is a huge thing, right? And it's super, super helpful, right? So I got that in there. Oh, it looks like, oh yeah, I see what I did there. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to grab that. I also want to grab this ring. So I'm shift, double clicking on that ring, and then shift, double clicking on this ring. I'm going to go back out to my right view, right? And what I want to do is I just want to scale this guy out. Now I might have scaled this guy sort of through more than just two axes. So I want to double check that. I did, right? So I want to bring this in via one axis, right? And we get that natural sort of bevel. Now notice how clever I was with the way I did the edge loops. I've only gotten those sort of angles that I need at the bare minimum to describe the shape of this object, right? So I'm going to come out of X-ray mode. Well, not X-ray mode, but I believe I've got the image planes kind of faded out a bit. So I'm going to grab my image plane, Control A to go to my attributes. And I'm going to take that alpha gain and crank it up a bit because I just need to see a little bit more of the detail on that car, right? So one of the things that shows my age is that I generally tend to model tires that are like way too thick because they weren't that width when I was younger, right? So I just want to be able to have that as a guide. I'm going to come through here. Right back to the right view. Now, let's say you were sort of stuck in this view and you can't do what I did. Well, I suppose you can. But let's just say we're in here and we just want to go through and grab faces. Now, I don't mind doing it this way because I know that I'm selecting through the object. In fact, I can do a lasso select and then come through here and then just select these guys. Oop. Control Shift to add to my selection, right? Ooh. Something's going on. Oh, it's a bit laggy. There we go. Come on, you. There you go, right? So when you select that way, notice I've grabbed everything all the way through, right? But let's say we want to go one ring higher, right? So the left and right angle brackets on your keyboard, they grow your selection. There you go. So when you hit Shift and right angle bracket, it'll grow your selection, right? And it grows your selection equidistant apart from your original selection, right? So there, I've grown it out one ring. Now this growing and shrinking, so if I go Shift and do the opposite, I can shrink my selection, right? This will become super, super handy, right? So you can Shift and really quickly increase your selection and grow it out to grab that particular area. Now I'm bringing in like higgledy-piggledy, little bits and tips about selecting, modeling, and all that kind of stuff, building on top of the basics. And the reason why is I didn't want to get too deep into individual techniques until you could see how I'm practically using them, right? So my best advice is things like me mentioning hotkeys, like a Shift left and right angle bracket, write those down. And I'm going to flip back to the right view. So here's what I want to do is I want to kind of expand this guy out, right? And try to find a good-ish kind of area to have that tire. Now, I want to continue to expand it out for the hubcap, but I don't want that second ring again. So I'm going to Shift left angle bracket, shrink that selection down, and go, okay, now I want to do that out. Now, actually, it's bringing this edge loop with me. So what I want to do is I want to say, look, instead of having faces, because if I have faces, it's all going together, right? It's going to crash through and cause all kinds of problems. I wonder if there's a way I can switch that to, say, vertices or edges without having to deselect and reselect and all that kind of stuff. Well, the F8, F9, F10, F11, and F12 keys are your different sub-objects. And if you hold down Shift, you can change to them. So I believe F9 is vertices, F10 is edges, F11 is faces, right? So if I go Shift F10, Shift F9, come on. Or is it just... Oh, they might have changed it. Yeah, so I just hit F10 and it just grabbed the edges for me. So we used to have to press shift. You know what really screws me up, by the way, as an aside, in Photoshop? You ever notice in Photoshop, back in the day when you wanted to scale something uniformly, you had to hold down shift and scale it? Because if you didn't, it would non-uniformly scale. And somewhere along the line, they flipped that. Right? So now when you grab this corner scale of something in Photoshop, it'll scale uniformly. And when you hold down shift, it non-uniform scales it. I'm constantly holding down shift. It's frustrating. I hate it when they do that with the hotkeys. But, you know, that's not the first time in history that's ever happened. Okay, so I've switched my face selection. I've switched my face selection over to edges. So it's kept the edge loops that were part of my face selection, if you see what I mean. So that was quite handy. So I can sit here and I can tweak this out. But now, if I want to shrink it, shift left angle bracket, oh no, really? It should have left this edge loop for me. That's okay. I'm going to double click and just grab that edge loop again. Oh, it's because there's only one left. That's right. There's only one ring left, and that's why it canceled it out. But this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get here, right? Now, if we take a look at what I've got going on here in terms of how it lines up, right? It's okay. It's a little bit too angled, I think. Let's grab this guy. But actually, we don't want to tweak it too much. But I just want to take this and then push it out just a little bit. Don't want it in that deep. And I've left the overlap, right? Because we're going to tackle the hubcap next, right? So I'll show you how I sort out the hubcap here. And as well, the dangers of orthographic modeling, right? So I'll put it to you guys. How are we going to handle this hubcap? How are we going to handle the hubcap? How would you guys model it? Can you create a group for a set of faces? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely you can. Increase the amount of polygons that is shown. No, because I want to model a separate piece. Now, this comes to a very, very kind of important point, right? A lot of you guys come into sort of polygon modeling thinking that you got to pull shapes out of a simple object. Now, this comes from the history of modeling, right? Where people used to be proud that they were, quote, cube modelers. There used to be guys that would be, that was the bragging rights, right? You'd see a character or a vehicle and they would say, yeah, I modeled that from a cube. And that became a thing, right? And it's still a thing where people believe that you have to model everything from a single contiguous piece of mesh, and you don't. So in the film industry, they have a saying, right? And that saying I absolutely love. It's when in doubt, model it out, right? So I'm in doubt, I'm gonna model a separate hubcap, right? Okay, so I'm gonna come into my right view, and I think what I'm probably going to do is I'll show you a little bit of the NURBS technique. I was watching some Maya speed models, and they helped me sort of get my head around modeling in the software. Just going to really try it. Yeah. One object for the whole thing. No, I know. We're all taught one object for the whole thing. No, no. That's very, very, very old school, right? Because we live in the age of retopology. You guys know what retopology is? Yeah. So when in doubt, model it all out, retopologize later. That's the way it's done now, right? Now there's some guys that will argue with me about that, actually, rightly so, because sometimes in production you don't have time to do that. So I'm going to actually deliberately bring in the CV curve tool, right? So let's see if we can find. Let's go top view. No, actually, I want to go. It'd be better from the front. Would be better from the front. But I'm missing my... Did I not put in my... I didn't put in my image planes for that. Okay, so I'm going to come to the front view. Now, I can't remember now if this was the opposite of what I'm thinking, right? I have a vague memory that it is. So I think from the front view, we have to put in the back image plane. But let's check it out. So I forgot to put in my image planes for the front and back. Let's sort that out now, right? So I'm going to come out of expert mode. Here I am in the front view camera. You can tell because it says here front. Yeah, the front pointing down the Z axis, right? And so I'm going to attach my image plane to this camera. So I'm going to start off by going up to my view menu, right? And the view menu is great because from here I can select the camera I'm looking through. And it pops over in the attribute editor. Front camera, bingo, it's right there, right? So remember, all my objects come with a transform node, which tells you where it's located. It's like its address. And the shape node, where you can actually alter the shape or what it does, right? So we don't want to do anything in the transform node. That's just the translates, rotates, scales. We're going to go to the shape node because in the shape node, we can add stuff to it. Now this is kind of counterintuitive, but where do you put the image plane? Well, in the environment. The reason why it's in the environment is people generally expect you to stick like clouds in the background or something nice in the background that'll, be wonderful to look at whilst you're modeling. And that's why they put the image plane for the environment, the background environment. But nah, we're going to use this to put our image plane, right? So in the image plane here, I usually leave that, name that image plane, and this will be, let's try the back. I think it's the back of the car, but let's try it out. So I'm going to pop in here and grab the back. You know what? Let's just do the front. See where we end up. And what? So we get an error. Image plane 3 type image name and Y Autodesk. Oh, did I? Maybe I named this too early. Let's leave it at the default name for now. Let's try and get that front image again. There we go. Now, we have to do a few things with this, obviously, right? So in here, we're going to go down to, now, automatically, you guys might think, oh, okay, well, I got to alter the shape of this. Well, maybe I need to go to the transform node. Well, no, if you go down lower in the image plane, you've got transforms for the image plane, if that makes sense. So everything to do with how you change the size of the image plane is down here. So here, we've got the image center, right? And I can move that up 1, right? Now, there's got to be an easier way to do this other than just entering the numbers in the image plane, because I'm like, it's too high. Maybe it was 0.8, and you're faffing about back and forth. Well, again, that's where the channel box comes in handy. Because remember, the channel box is exactly like the attribute editor, only it's for animators. And what that means is I can take the image center, click on the word, and middle mouse button drag in the viewport to change the values in real time in the viewport, right? So I can go, okay, that's where I want to be. Now, instantly, we can see straight away that there's a mistake with the tires, right? So let's first of all make sure we don't have a mistake with the image plane. Now, we cut this up from the same blueprint and we lined it up in Photoshop, so it should have come in perfect, right? It should have, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, save this, just so I got a backup copy. And I'll open up the option box to make sure incremental save is turned on, right? Then I'm going to come and set keyframes on this, just so that, oh, it won't let me. Oh, you bastard. Is it now locked? Do they lock it these days? Let's select that camera again and select the camera again, and we're gonna pop over into the, what did I just attach that camera to? Okay, we're in here. one quick second. I just got to double check to make sure I've got the right thing connected up. Yeah, image plane. Oh, weird. That was weird. Okay, we got there though. I've selected that image plane. Okay, let me back it up a step because I just got in the midst of problem solving, and I'll explain to you what happened and why I was a bit puzzled, right? So I selected off the image plane. So I'm like, okay, no big deal. Let me select the image plane. You should be able to select the image plane, by the way. So it's strange that I was unable to, right? So quickly I went into problem solving mode and thought, okay, let's check the camera. So I grabbed the camera, and in the attribute editor, it's like this. It says create the image plane. I was like, what? Did I or did I not just create the image plane? So it's telling me there's no image plane hooked up, which is really strange. Now, this icon here says show me what you're plugged into. So when I click on it, it should have flipped right over to the image plane. But it didn't happen. So I went into my Windows node editor because I wanted to see what was connected to the camera. I selected my camera again, and I clicked on here to say show me the input and output connections, and it showed me this graph and said, yeah, you've got an image plane plugged in there. I'm gonna pop these down to make sure they're plugged into the right areas, which they should be, right? So I'm just kind of rolling, unfurling that node, right? Look through camera, that's cool. It's all plugged in correctly. I just don't know why it's not showing up in my attribute editor. That's a bit of strangeness there, right? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna, again, switch back over to the channel box, because what I wanted to do was to make sure that that image plane lines up, right? So our image center is at 0.7, but I'm gonna go with the image X and swing it over this way. And I'm looking for a couple of reference items. One of them is the wing mirror. So with that lined up, I'm gonna take my image center Z and skate it forward. And round about there-ish. Yeah, it lines up pretty good. Pretty good. And then I'm going to take a look at the tire around about the center. That lines up pretty good. It feels a little bit like the front view is a bit thicker. But again, this wing mirror would be slightly larger from that particular view anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. So we're close enough. I'm going to zero this out. Again, the importance of being able to zero things out. I cannot emphasize it enough, right? So now we got our front view, right? And if we were to take this, see, it's a bit strange. I'm going to see if we can manually set a key. Okay, so I can key those. I'm going to manually lock these down, right? So with a keyframe, at that frame 1, it'll be remembered, that position, right? So I'm going to move this to frame 2, right? And say, oh, that's actually, that's what I was thinking of. So you have to do this counterintuitively. So if you want to move this out of the way of your car, move this guy towards the back and then set a key. I'll tell you why. Because when you go to your front view, you're going to want to see that, right? But you're going to be modeling in front of it. You don't want the image plane covering your front view. Does that make sense? Right? So if I'm over here, I'm going to be modeling the front view here. If that image plane was here, it'd be covering my work and it'd be very, very hard to work, right? So the front view you want to send to the back, and the opposite the other way. Okay, one sec, guys. I will be right back. You guys okay? Oh, I thought I heard you call my name. I thought I heard you call. Okay. Oh, that's a bit better. Turn the lights on in here. Oh, that's a lot better. Okay, so Maple syrup, the grand summoner of Al. 80% of 3D model is problem solving and 20% is actually creating something. Yes and no, actually. With that, there's a lot of modeling tools. Well, actually, let me start off by saying the industry recognizes that, right? 80% of 3D modeling is problem solving. It is not the place you want to be as an artist. As an artist, you want to be very similar to the mindset of a painter, where it's your creativity and the canvas. And what's happening is the paintbrush, you're connected by your paintbrush, but you forget the paintbrush after a while, right? So that's the point that most 3D applications are trying to get to, is the ability to forget the tool and be so immersed in creating, right? And ZBrush gets the closest in my experience to that. Okay, so I'm gonna flip back to my front view. Oh, actually, that's good point, is if we take a look at the right view, now I'm not gonna alter the placement of the tire because I've got it lined up to the blueprint. So you have to make that judgment call. So why am I not lining it up to the actual car? Well, because I'm not 100% convinced that this is the exact model of the blueprint. Also, I don't know what lens camera shot this photograph. So there might be lens distortion or curvature of that car that might be so minuscule, you know, that I won't be able to recognize it. I could have just done a really bad job aligning the photo with the blueprint. So in that regard, pick one thing and stick to it. The one thing that's got the most references. And in our case, the most references is the blueprint. So I'm going to stay with the blueprint, right? So I'm going to go back over to perspective mode. And we're going to go back to our front view. And I'm going to make some adjustments to the tire. Now, remember, if I'm in object mode, so I right click and go to object mode, you can tell you're in object mode because it's highlighted in green. If I move this, it's not going to move the other guy, right? So we got to be a bit wary of that. So what I want to do is right click. I don't know, this time I'll grab vertices, right? Grab all the vertices, move these guys over. And straight away we can see that the tire probably could do with expanding out a little bit, right? So I'm going to expand this guy out. So you've got that aliasing, right? What do you generally tend to do? Well, this is where the eye of the artist comes in, right? Because it's not going to be perfect, so you got to make a judgment call, right? And I'm just going to make it slightly wider, right? And there we go. I wanted to get to this point. Oops. I'm going to right click, switch to object mode to get out of there, right? So I wanted to get to this point to start thinking about what I'm going to do for the hubcap, right? Now, let's go back to our perspective view and we'll bring our timeline back, right? Now, we've got no idea what that hubcap's supposed to look like. So we can sort of make it up. It's the one thing we have a little bit of creative freedom over, right? But for now, I'm just going to do a very simplified one, right? Template, so it would be like if you were tracing on the image. Build on top of the template. Yes, you can build on top of the template. In fact, that's what we did on Need for Speed. One of the many more monotonous tasks of a concept artist is to take these the blueprints and design our bumpers and spoilers and side skirts and all that kind of stuff on the blueprints, right? So yeah, we would definitely, this is where we'd go to add our design work, right? Wider with the tires because you can hide most of it under the car's body. It's too early. Yes, too early to make that judgment call. In fact, it was stupid of me to show you because I'm finicking with a model at too early a stage, right? It's way too early a stage. This is just the block out, right? And yeah, I know the tires are a little bit asymmetrical, but I'm not really too concerned about that at the moment. Actually, you know what? Let's fix that up. Go back to our front view, right? I'm gonna grab the vertices here. I think I'm just being lazy. And I'm just going to eyeball this a little bit more like that. And I'm gonna grab this guy, and I'm gonna grab this guy, right? And maybe widen that out a bit and then pop out, take a look. Yeah, that's good enough, right? Let's say we had to get this perfectly symmetrical. What I would do is then I'd grab one of these edge loops, do an edge ring and split. It'll go right through the middle, delete one half of it, duplicate it, and then merge those two together, and I'd have an exact symmetrical copy. Don't worry about that. I'll show you guys that technique later. So I'm going to go back to the front view, and with this sort of lip in mind, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to, first of all, really quickly, edit, delete by type, history, modify, freeze transformations. Then I'm going to go to create, curve tools, CV curve tool, right? So I'm going to come in here, and I don't know, I'm just going to something like that. I don't know. I'm just giving, it doesn't have to be perfect because I am just giving myself some control vertices to work with. Nope, not that one. I'm going to turn off my polygons for a quick sec and then come in here, right click, control vertex. I'm going to show my polygons again. In fact, yeah, what's up, buddy?
Can I add Lloyd again?
What's that?
Can I add Lloyd?
Yeah, of course you can.
How do you spell his name? Because
I don't remember, man. That's Connor.
YD.
LLOYD. Oh no. You Drake Fach, isn't it?
Drake. But I don't know how to spell.
Oh right. Okay, hang on a second. One sec, guys. All right.
Why have you got ketchup here and no food stuff here?
Oh, I forgot to take that downstairs. Oh, okay, so I think it's Drake. Isn't it? Like that? Take that. See if you can spell it. And there's a number, isn't there? Drake Vach 24 or something like that? Nope. No idea. He's gone. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna take this opportunity to make my life a little bit easier. I'm gonna grab that tire and that tire, and it's a good time to go to my channel box, layer editor, go into my display, and create a layer and add the objects in there. Straight away, name it. Otherwise, you'll just forget. Trust me. Tires, right? And then this way, I can template the guy, right? Or actually, I'll just reference it like this. Because when you reference it, I believe you can also... no, let's template it for now. So we're in there. We got a template for this guy. And I'm also going to grab my curve. And now if we go to our right view, we can see that the curve was created at world 0, 0, 0, right? So we want to move this over. And just kind of eyeballing it to line it up sort of at the center, right? And now remember, you still have the opportunity to right click, go to control vertices and edit this guy, right? So, I don't know, I might grab this, try to make it a little bit something like that. I don't know. And I was also thinking about how the shape I'm about to create will tuck underneath the tire. So, you know what, I'm not going to edit this. I'll just show it to you, and then we can talk about it. So, again, you want to come in here and really sort of develop what you want for the look of your hubcap. You might want more sort of control vertices than I'm kind of working with here at the moment. But you don't have to, again, you don't have to sort of worry too much about it, because remember, we're just blocking this guy out super quick. So I drew that real quick, and now we can go to, now we're going to create a NURBS surface, which is different from polygons. So remember the wine glass I showed you? It's exactly the same kind of thing, right? So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to hit the space bar, go to my surfaces menu, which I can also find under here at surfaces menu. And I'm going to do a revolve. Now I'm going to open up the option box because I want to put the pivot. Oh, actually, I got to adjust the pivot first. So I'm going to hit the insert key, and I'm going to lock the insert key. I'm going to lock the pivot point to the curve. Now remember the 3 snapping hotkeys I told you: X, C, and V. X to snap to the grid, V to snap to a vertex or a component, and C to snap to a curve. There you go, right? So I'm going to hold C and I'm going to middle mouse button and sort of wiggle until it snaps to the line. And just drag it all the way down to the end. And I've moved the pivot point to the end of that curve. I'm going to hit insert again to come out of that, right? And so my pivot, I'm using to pivot this around. I'm pivoting it around the x-axis and I'm using the object pivot, right? So I'm going to apply and it goes all the way around, right? There you go, hubcap, right? So I'm going to close this, right? And we'll come out of X-ray mode just to take a look at it, right? So now we can take this, we can convert it, we can build on top of it, right? But the two key features that I was looking for is this little, you know, that round circular sort of thing, making sure that looked right, and then just the lip for the hubcap, so how it tucks in past the tire, right? And then when you're done with that, you can just grab this object, right? And let's say we want to carve into it. So I'm going to go to my modify, convert, NURBS to polygons, and open up the option box, just like we did with the wine glass, right? So now, this time, I'm going to say, I'd like to have something relatively smooth. So I'm going to go, give me a 200 polygon kind of poly object. I'm going to move this out, see if that works okay. That works all right for me. Now, I'm going to take my NURBS and my curve object there. I'm going to Control G it. And I'm going to create this one node called construction objects. I've called this construction objects for like 15 years. And I'm going to put this up at the top. Now, the one thing I have to remember is that when I am done, I have to delete this. The number one problem young modelers make when working on a game team is they forget to clean up their construction objects. And when they submit their 3D files to be incorporated into the game, the importer crashes because it does not know how to interpret all of these construction objects, right? So cleaning out your scene is really, really important, right? So the other thing I can do with these construction objects is I can also put them in another layer. Didn't I name you tire? I swear to God, maybe I'm just tired. Pardon the pun. Okay, and this one I'm going to call construction object, construction, right? Save that. And I can turn visibility off on that off. And I just have my polygonal hubcap, right? So at this point I can flip to the front view, or yeah, the front view, and I can sort of fine tune its placement inside the car, right? Notice how the pivot point snaps directly to the world. We're going to need that, right? So let me get the placement a little bit better, right? So it's got to sit inside a little bit, right? And actually, it's not big enough. And it's a little off center as well, right? So at this point, I probably want to bring the original one back. Oh, okay, that's cool. Now, I need to make some modifications to this hubcap before I kind of incorporate it. But before I do that, I want to check a few things. So one of the things that I check when I convert to poly is to make sure that I have a T, right? So I've got a straight up and down. No, I don't. And across. No, I don't. So I'll probably bake out this object again from my construction objects. Let's come into this NURBS to poly, right? I'm going to take this guy, delete it, and let's bring back our construction objects and the revolved surface again. I'm going to come into my modify, convert NURBS to polys, right? And I wanted, I'll tell you what, let's go control points instead, right? And I'll tell you why. Because with the control points, let me hide the NURBS objects again. Control points, I've got the cross that I wanted, right? And I'll need that if I want to start building more complex shapes into this. But then I can also take this and go mesh, where are you now? Smooth. Mesh smooth, right? So it'll smooth this out for me. Give me a new piece of geometry. And I've still got my cross through it, right? You rotate the surface area to get it lined up. No, because the distribution of the curves, right? or such that we had one straight down going from the top, and then we had a little bit of an isosceles triangles at the bottom, right? So I didn't want that. Now, this hubcap's still very polygonal, but I'm not worried about that at this stage, right? So let's get this sort of positioned up. I'm going to flip back over to my X-ray view, and let's get this guy centered up. Now, we've got our pivot at world 0, 0, 0. So we'll move it back there later, but for now, let's move this pivot to the center of the object. Now, we can use it with the insert X, C, and V keys, or we can go to modify, and they actually have a center pivot, right? So I used to use the center pivot quite a lot, right? And so that brings it, pops it in the middle, right? Now here, I'm gonna have to eyeball it a little bit. There's a center snap where I can take the one object center and snap it to the center of another object. I think it's a snap align. Let's see if I can find it. So, snap align objects. Snap align objects. Just gonna see align and was it the mid world X? Let's try this. So I'm going to grab that object and that object, and let's apply. Did it do it? I'm not entirely. No, it didn't. I can tell pretty much it didn't. Selection average or snap to the last selected object. I'll tell you what, let's just eyeball it for today. But trust me, there's a way of snapping two objects together based on their centers. But I'm so used to just eyeballing this guy. So let's bring this guy up and then over. Something like that, right? It's good enough. Again, we're just blocking this out, right? So hubcap might be a tad too deep, I think. It should be sitting out about there-ish. Right? So this is what I'm talking about in terms of needing loads of reference, right? Loads of reference. So how far is that hubcap out towards the tire? We can't not tell with our reference images. So this is why I was telling you guys, I encourage you to pick an object that you are exposed to every day, whether it's something on your desk or your house or your family car or what have you, because you can run out real quick and go, well, how far is that hubcap out from the surface? How far does it extend out, et cetera, right? So I want to freeze those transforms on that hubcap, right? So I'm going to go to Edit, Delete by Type, History, Modify, Freeze Transformations, right? Now, we want to mirror this hubcap over. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my front view. Now, if I were to just mirror this now, right? So if I go and I go to Edit, Duplicate Special, open up the option box, and I want to create an instance. And remember, I want to scale it. This is the positive X. I want to scale it through to the negative X. It's not going to work, right? Oh, it just flipped it around that pivot. So let's undo that. Let's get this pivot back to the world, right? So I'm going to hit Insert, and then X middle mouse button, the grid here, and then hit Insert to come out of that pivot tool again. So now I'm lined up. Now when I hit Apply, it's going to duplicate it across to the other side, right? So this is counterintuitive. Every other software on the planet has like a tool called Mirror, and it just makes sense. But for this, for Maya, you have to go into Edit, Duplicate Special, right? And Duplicate Special will allow you to choose, whether you make a copy or an instance, and you'd have to mirror it through, right? Actually, out of curiosity, maybe they do have a mirror now. No, there's no mirroring operation. Not yet. Okay, that's one of those idiosyncrasies of Maya then. Okay, so we've got our two hubcaps, and I'm going to come back out of X-ray mode, right? So yeah, I've actually gone a bit too far with the hubcaps. That's okay. Or have I? Ooh, we've got misaligned objects. Now, how did that happen? Let's go to X-ray. Ho-ho! Okay, so it looks like I accidentally at some point moved this tire. So let me hold down the X key, and I'm going to middle mouse button snap into the center. I'm hoping I didn't misalign them. Let's see, and let's check the right view. Alignment seems okay. Oh yeah, it happened when I was doing the align object. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to turn off X-ray, and so now we've got two hubcaps that are sticking out way too far. That's okay. I'm just going to grab both these objects, and I'm just going to... Oh, you know what? Let's do this properly. I'm going to take this, delete it. Because if I took those two objects and just scaled them in, they'd also shrink ever so slightly, or they'd flatten rather, ever so slightly. Does it duplicate the model with the exact parameters? Yes, it does, right? And it keeps them connected, right? So now I'm going to redo what I did before. I'm going to bring in the hubcap as far as I think it needs to go. Something maybe a little bit, oops, maybe a little bit further out, like about there-ish, I think. Now I got to realign the center again. So I'm going to pop to the front, insert, X snap this to the middle, whoops, insert key, and X middle mouse, Something happened there. I think I panic clicked a little bit. Let's undo. There you go. And go back to the front view, hit the insert key, and hold X, grab the middle, and middle mouse button snap it to the center, hit the insert key again, come out to perspective view to double check my work. And now I'm going to edit, duplicate first of all, edit, delete by type history, because we have a transform here on the X-axis. If I don't do this correctly, it might duplicate it and then add on the negative 0.036. Boy, wouldn't that screw us up, right? So edit, delete by type history, modify, freeze transformations, right? Now we can safely go in and edit, duplicate special, and we'll do that. We'll make an instance through the -1. I'm going to apply. And it should have brought it over almost exactly. And yes, they share the same parameters. And because they're an instance, right, I can modify one, right, like this, and it'll modify the other, right? So that helps us out. Okay, so I'm going to File, Save Scene. Tire cone, yeah. Yeah, you can get reference for a hubcap as well. And you can model whatever kind of hubcap you want. You can put spinners on it or whatever you want to do, right? Okay, so let's start off with something relatively easy to begin with, right? So let's do the windshield on the front, and we'll work our way sort of over the roof. It's a little bit easier, and it sort of teaches you guys the techniques a little bit, you know, one step at a time kind of thing. So I'm going to flip over to the right view. And here again, I'm going to use my Create CV Curve tool, right? Now, here's a little thing that I like to do, right? Is I'll do 1, 2, 3, because it makes a tight, nice tight curve. Let's go 4, right? So that tucks it in. Otherwise, you get a little bit of like the paper thin kind of look if you're not careful. Now, where do you place this on that aliased line? That's the real challenge, right? So let's give us, first of all, I try to place them equidistant apart. And I'm going to put 3 to give us a nice curve. I might come up here and go 1, 2, 3, just to turn that corner, right? Now, it's not a perfect curve, so let's get this on the outside of the aliasing, right? That's probably what I want to do. right? So I'm going to take this, we'll move this guy over, and then maybe not completely on the outside of it, but just a little bit closer towards that edge, right? And I might just leave this because it, something like that, right? Now the beauty of a NURBS object is that your control curves will still be attached, so you can do all kinds of changes to it even after you create that surface, right? Possible to create a spline in the side view and then drop a NURB inside to create the frame. Yes, absolutely you can, right? I'm going to select this guy, right? Now, here comes the tricky part, right? So I'm going to Control D, duplicate it, right? And move the duplicate curve over here, right? Now, here's the one thing, this sort of observation to detail, this attention to detail that I find is oftentimes lacking in a lot of sort of junior modeler portfolios, right? The windshield is not a perfect curve. It does a little something as it goes across the car. It's almost like two different parabolic shapes going across the car, right? So notice that curve wasn't perfect. It does this flattening out kind of thing as it goes across, right? Now, I could have made this curve from the top view as well, by the way, right? I'm just starting at the side view just for, convenience. But you can very much model the curves from the top, and you'll notice the same thing. It's a shallower curve from the top that goes a little bit deeper as it goes down in. Now, I've got to flip over to my front view to make sure that I've got those curves aligned correctly. Oh, actually, let's pop back in here, right? And I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to grab that curve. Now, notice my center is down here in the world. I want to go to modify center pivot just to snap that guy to the middle of that curve, right? And then I'm going to flip back over to my front view and I'm going to drag that new curve over. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, it does something else as well. It angles this away, which probably means I'm going to have to go and actually readjust the way that curve looks from my right view, right? Because it's sort of done this angle thing, right? So now I want to rotate this guy to get it back into place. Notice how it's at an odd angle because I had to move it across and rotate it, right? But look at what my gizmo's doing. My rotation gizmo is not making it easy for me to rotate this guy, right? So if I hold down the E and the left key, I've got options, right? So I can say, look, rotate it based on the object orientation or rotate it based on the world. So perfect. I say rotate based on the world, right? And I can just swing this guy around like this. And look at that. It does this weird fanning out as it goes around. So if we come over here, we take a look at this, right? From the front view, it's looking a little bit better. I still have to make a little tweak this way and probably need to bring it up. Now, same problem, right? Hold down the W key, left mouse button, switch to object orientation, and now I can lift this based on the object orientation. But I think it screwed me up on the right view. No, not too bad. On the right view, I'm going to hold down the W left key, switch back to world orientation, right? And I can bring it down just a touch. Something like that. There's an angle we haven't checked as well. So if we go to our top view, which we haven't looked at for ages. Oh, just look at that. We got a little bit lucky. Move it into place like this. Something like that. We're close, right? So now we've got that. I really want to double check the front view, make sure that's all right. Yeah. So now we have to find the, oh yeah, world orientation and local orientation. It's a huge lifesaver. But you've got other orientations as well, right? So if we come in here and I go E and hold down left click, I've got gimbal, I've got component, I've got discrete rotate. We've got quite a few. Custom, I've never used. But you can set the orientation of your axes based on a face. That's probably, I have used this before. That's the common one because it's easy to select a face and understand how you're going to lay that crosshairs along the face, right? So that's done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control D this guy again and move this over. And we're going to start to find sort of where this guy's going to go in here, right? I'm going to go to my, actually, let's see. We're going to want to raise this guy up a bit. And let's go to our right view. So this guy is going to come out this way, right? And I'm going to want to start rotating it like that. Now, it's also going to start to need to expand, right? So I'm going to come over here, Control Vertex, grab these guys, and move this down a little bit, right? It's really, really touchy. There's lots of shapes on a car that are actually quite complex feats of engineering, to be completely honest with you. To make this feels a little bit off to me as well. As well, I'm also sort of wary to make sure that the control vertices are making a smooth curve all the way across as well, right? I'm trying to imagine what it's going to look like when these are connected up, right? So I'm going to go to, let's check our front view rather. So that's there. And let's go to our top view. So here, yeah, we need to definitely make a change. So I'm probably going to make this change. Actually, let's do this at the control vertex level. That's fine. So I'm going to, grab this, control vertex. I'm going to right click, control vertex there. Right click in the middle, control vertex there. What that effectively does is it doesn't select them, but it shows you the control vertices for reference, which is cool. So that I know that when I pull this down, right, it'll make a nice kind of curve going through that way. I'm probably going to want to make some further curve adjustments here. Then we'll bring this guy down to there. This guy down to here. Let's move this down. This guy down. See, I'm trying to think about the arc going through here. I want to make sure that it's a nice smooth arc. Something like that. Now, I would normally put another curve in there, but I'm sort of cognizant of time. So I'll show you how we got time for one more curve. So I'm going to grab this object, right? Control D it, move it over again, right? And I will go into, I'll go into my control verts. Control vert that. Right click, control vertex, right click, control vertex, right? So I can see better what I'm doing. I'm going to adjust this guy up like this. And again, I'm not too worried about it because I know that these curves will stay connected when I create this object. So I'll have another opportunity to sort of fine tune it. I'm going to go to the right view. Yeesh, right? So this is kind of difficult, but you got to sort of imagine what it's going to be doing as it spaces itself out as it approaches the, So I'm trying to make sure that the spacing is not too bad and that we still maintain something of a curvature. I might be, being too finicky at this too early a stage here. So I'm going to back up in a second and we'll just make this bloody surface. Oh, that's a swear word in this country, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, something like that, right? So now I'm going to double check from the front. Yeah, we got a bit of a wobble, right? And I'm going to check from the top. That's cool. And then I'm going to check from the right. That's cool. That's all right. Let's just make this surface. So I'm going to go back to object mode, come out to perspective, and go back to object mode. It's a light curse. Yeah, I gathered as much. Like damn or something like that. That's just my youngest son. It's just like, you can't say that word, Dad. Okay, so you'll get the idea what I'm doing here. I'm just going to select. Now this is important. I'm going to select the curves, but I'm going to select them in order. From left to right, because I'm trying to. What's basically happening with this operation? It's going to beam geometry across all of these, and you have to pretty much tell it what order to go, right? So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go back to my surfaces, and I'm going to loft and open up the option box. So this will be a uniform loft, and I can create output geometry as polygons straight away. But let's just do this so you guys can see, right? So there we've got our windshield. Now why is this doing it to me? It's always doing this to me. Let's back this up. I want to see what auto reverse does. So you see what's happening there. We've got a situation where the normals are facing, they're inverted. They're facing the wrong way, right? But that's okay. Let's grab this object, and I think we can go to display, NURBS, and where is it now? Or is it object display? There's a way of inverting the NURBS, the normals on the NURBS surface. Can't remember. Well, let's just get to the business of converting this, and then we can deal with it then, right? So the one reason why I use a NURBS object is because it's got a natural smoothness to it that sort of makes it easier when I want to come in here and start making adjustments, right? So now we've got our object. I'm actually going to hide these construction curves by middle mouse button dragging them into my construction objects. And then that way, when I go to my my NURBS lofted surface and right click and go to control vertices, I know I'm grabbing the control vertices on that NURBS object, not on my curves. So I'm going to go back to the top view and then, clean up, right? So you can spend a bit of time cleaning up your model. The idea is that you get nice, smooth, sort of silky curves, right? So it's all about the topology, the line quality of the topology, right? And then so I'm going to go to my right view. Now this one takes some observation. So I would recommend, if you're doing this, go out to a car and really study how that windshield curves. They spend a huge amount of time trying to get that right, because it's one of those facets of a car that's key to the aerodynamics of it, right? Oh, I got something weird going on here. So I want to kind of pop out in perspective mode and see what happened there. Why is it curving up that way? Okay, so I've got a line of these guys that are going in too deep, right? So I'm going to grab these guys and then just sort of adjust them. So when I come back to my right view, you can see that. We need to pull these guys out a little bit. Oh, it's not that one. There's a funny line in there somewhere. So anyway, you get the idea. So I'd spend a fair amount of time just kind of trying to push and pull these guys to get a relatively smooth surface. Now, I wouldn't want to spend too much time at this stage because of the fact that once we can convert it to polygons, we're going to be doing this again, right? Just to get the curvature correct, right? So I'm just going to leave it at that because it's enough to get you guys going, right? So I probably want to come in here and curve these guys just a little bit. I might actually, in this particular case, probably go a little bit away from the blueprint. I'm going to pop over to perspective view, make sure I've got the right one selected here. Yeah, I do. I'm going to go back to my right view. So you spend a fair amount of time kind of panel beating your vehicle or hard body model into shape. Takes a little bit of time, but the more you do it, the better you get. And then I'm constantly sort of coming back out and rotating around it just to see what that looks like. In retrospect, I don't think I would do this with that many curves. I would have left it at 3 curves because it's easier to sort of balance this out with just 3 curves and then start slowly adding curves. Anyway, that's getting there, right? So that's that. Now I'm going to add a polygon object next. So first, I want to name these guys actually. So we got left. Oh. This guy is the. How come? No. Right, left. There. Actually, I'm just going to move ahead. I'll name these guys afterwards. Okay, so for this, now I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to create a polygon primitive now, cube. Right? So I'm going to scale this guy down. And I'm going to switch to my right view. And I'm just going to move this guy up. So we're going to start shaping this guy. So I'm going to pop to my front view and we'll move this guy over here, right? So I'm going to right click, grab the vertices, and then just bring these guys down and then expand these guys out. And we'll just start carving the shape of this in, right? So I might grab just the vertices here, move them into place there. Right. And when I've hit my kind of limit of polygons, that's when I'm going to come in and I'm going to add an edge loop. And here I like to use the edge, ring, and split. Oops, control, right click, the edge loop utilities, and sorry, edge, ring, and split. They keep moving it deeper and deeper. So I got to come up with some new techniques, guys. But why I like the edge, ring, and split is it goes right through the exact center, right? The mathematical center. Okay, so now I've got a few more vertices and I can push and pull and shape this a little bit better, right? Now I'm showing you this technique because this is another technique where you add sort of edges as you go, right? You add them as and when you need them. So you have complete control over the poly count as you're going, right? So in this case, I'm going to go to edge mode, select this edge, hit G key. Nope, it's not going to give it to me. Control right click, edge, ring, and split. And I'm going to right click, grab those vertices, bring these guys up to add just a bit of curvature there as well. And pop up to perspective. And I'm going to grab these two faces. Now here's an interesting kind of dilemma, right? So from the side view, we've got the taper going off the side. From the front view, we've got sort of the width of it. But how does it taper? Oh, actually, first of all, let me sort out the top view. So what I was going to say, how does it taper in terms of away from the camera? But actually, the top view is good enough for us here. But again, you got to be careful when you're lining this up. You have to constantly be double checking. I didn't know it was at an angle, so this is good. Because I think with what I've pushed and pulled here, it's probably gone a bit wonky, right? So we want to be able to fix that. I'm going to come in here, grab this vertex, move that back. This vertex as well, move that back. Right? Because notice, look at that. See that dark gray area? That's a polygon artifact. You don't want those, right? That's two triangles that are non-planar, right? So I think that's what we need for that. Now I want to double check again my right view. Make sure that's okay. Yeah, see, there's a little bit of an angle on this, but it's gone a little bit wonky. So we want to sort of straighten this up a little bit. It's much easier to do this kind of straightening up work when you've got very few polygons to worry about. I've seen lots of people pull their hair out because they got way too many polygons to concern themselves with, and they have to do this shaping. And it just ends up being a tremendous nightmare, right? So let's go to our front view. And in here, just want to make this a little bit more kind of rounded a bit. And we probably need one through here, right? So I'm going to edge ring and split this. And you can see, again, we've got sort of wonky vertices. So we need to straighten those out and kind of make a sort of a logical curvature out of all this. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you guys for today. So one polygon technique and one NURBS technique. You only increase it after the modeling is done, don't you? So you have less faces and vertices to move around. Yeah, absolutely. So again, the rule of thumb is to try to model as much detail at the resolution level you're at before increasing the resolution. Like only increase the resolution when you need more vertices. So that's what I'm hoping to try and demonstrate with just this technique. Notice how I blocked it out as a cube, got it roughly what I wanted, and then added more edge loops, and it got it roughly where I wanted, and so on. I was very careful with adding edge loops, right? Because you never know when that's good enough. Is that good enough? Right? Do you guys think that's good enough? I don't know. Let's find out, right? Let's come over here, grab this guy, and let's do a quick mesh smooth, right? That'll tell us pretty much straight away, right? It's close. It's not there yet, but it's close, right? It's really close, right? So we can back this up, and I can always come in here and select these faces and do a shift, right click, extrude face, right? So with the extrude face, I can do an offset, whoops, 0.01, right? So I've extruded that in, and then I hit the G key to extrude again, and this time I play with the thickness of it. Oh, it's hard to control at that level. Negative 0.01, right? Like that. So I've done a couple of extrusions. So now if I right click, go to object mode, right? Edit, delete by type, history. Modify, freeze transformations. And then go to mesh and mesh smooth, right? Cool, we're getting there, right? So two techniques I've walked you guys through. NURBS-based modeling and polygon modeling, right? Now, what I expect you guys to try for next class is the tires, the hubcaps, right? The wing mirrors, and all the windows. And maybe, just maybe, the roof, if you feel confident enough. The front and rear quarter panels are a little bit tricky. The front grille, that's the hardest part, right? So I'm going to save that. Now, by the way, there's been loads of car modelers since my days modeling cars, and there's like dozens and dozens of tutorials out there. So you guys are welcome to go exploring. Car modeling tutorials are a dime a dozen. People have a variety of different techniques, right? So please explore. If you see it too, or even speak to David. You've seen his cars. He knows his stuff, right? He's a better car modeler than me. I can say that hands down, right? So if you run across a technique or a methodology, please let me know, and we can discuss it. In the meantime, I'm teaching you the Need for Speed way of modeling cars, right? So yeah, take it as you will. The one thing that I noticed is very funny is that with car modeling, it's very divisive. It's unlike character modelers, but vehicle modelers are very, very finicky about their process. So you will, yeah, because it's technical. It's kind of like artists getting into arguments about perspective, right? It's like correct perspective or correct proportions on your character is the most important thing, right? So yeah, you'll get a lot of, if you talk to other car modelers, they'll all be very, very particular about how you're supposed to approach car modeling. So this is just one of many, 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 many techniques, right? So I'm just, by the way, I'm not even teaching you techniques to model a car. I'm using the car, if you guys are clever enough to have deduced this, I'm using the car to teach you some other standard, basic modeling approaches that you can use elsewhere on other things, right? So it's my opportunity to, so think about it. Today, polygon modeling for the tires, instance-based modeling, when you have to do a symmetrical object, NURBS to create the hubcaps, NURBS to create the windshield, back to polygon modeling, and the concept of when you add subdivisions when attacking the wing mirror, right? So these are all like really key concepts, right? Okay. What's the question? Speaking of character, want to see the one I've been drawing? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So show me your character work. Now, for those of you who want to show me loads of stuff, it's best to try and get it into F-Track. So if it's a drawing, then it's best to go into let's see, the Visual Studies. I believe I made a. So if you go into Visual Studies under the Art Bible, right, you can throw stuff in there, right? The beauty of having it on an F-Track, uploaded F-Track, is that I can actually properly, constructively feed back on these things for you, right? It's pointless me looking at a Discord post and going, yeah, that's pretty good. What you really want me to do is you want me to do draw overs. You really, really want me to do that. Those of you who are itching to become better artists, you need me to do draw overs, right? But yeah, failing that, you can just post it up if you just want me to take a look and we can just have a casual discussion. I'm all for that as well, right? Are we animating clips and modeling the hard body, or just modeling for this assignment? Animating clips. Animating clips. You're just modeling. You are just modeling hard body for this modeling assignment. That's it. That's a different assignment, right? So there's a. Oh, I see. Yeah, because it's creative practice, right? So it's creative practice, but I've split it into two. See? So we've got modeling and we've got animation. So you got two briefs, right? The modeling, the hard body modeling, and some animated clips. So yeah, you're right. Exclamation marks. Why? Yes, yeah. You, for the games guys, you have to do the modeling and animation assignments as well. I thought, did Rich talk you guys through that? I'm a bit concerned. I'm worried now that maybe Rich didn't mention that to you guys. and Tom, were you here Thursday? I did go through the animation brief, did I? Pretty sure I did. Okay, Rich has a... Yeah, okay, that's fine. So yes, you do. Animated clips and a hard body model. Post it on F-Track. Yeah, okay, let me take a look at it on F-Track. That's cool. Right on. No, one does not replace the other. You're in this course to learn both modeling and animating, so you got to do both, right? Oh no, those posting under concept art. My bad. That's my mistake. Apologies. Backpedaling here. I forgot that I created that area for you guys to post stuff, right? It doesn't matter if you post it in the Art Bible. I'll still take a look at it and review it. But yeah, I forgot. I didn't see that. I made an extra concept art area. That's right. See, this is cool, right? So the reason why I want you guys to do this is so that I can pop in here like this, right? I can pop open the web player. And in the web player, I can load this up and I can start doing drawovers, right? So this is a big thing for me. So for example, the key thing here is I would look at sort of the foreshortening, right? So the one issue here is just the foreshortening of that limb. That's all, right? So do you see what I mean about how valuable my drawovers are in terms of guiding you and helping you to figure things out, right? Obviously, I want to do that on my Cintiq, so I don't have this crappy mouse line. But it's my way of saying, okay, this is fantastic. Here's what you need to do, right? So this is cool. Very, very nicely rendered. Very, very nicely colored. There are a few things. There's quite a few things that I can feed back on. I'll tackle that later. Very cool. Oh, creature work. Yeah, nice. Oh, very cool. Right? That's sweet. Look at that. Holy, how pro is that? An anatomy breakdown as well. That's fantastic. Hey, don't let your drawing confidence go down. That's what you're here for, right? You're here to show me stuff and have me guide you. You're not here to be able to draw already, right? Yeah, I know. You know what? The only thing that I can say to you, right, is that the one thing that oftentimes artists will fall back on when criticized about a pose or something like that is to describe technically what the character's supposed to be doing, right? But at the end of the day, it visually doesn't look quite right, right? So it doesn't matter if it's correct for the physical activity the character's doing. If it doesn't look correct, you need to alter it. So here's an example, right? I remember having a discussion with that animation teacher of mine, right? And he's an overseas animation director for The Simpsons, right? And I would say, look, the ears on my mouse character look awkward, drawn at this angle. Like, how can I figure this out? And he was like, easy, man. You just don't draw it at that angle. I was like, well, I don't get it. What if I need to? I mean, I need to have it at that angle. And he's like, no, you don't, man. It's a crappy drawing. Draw it at a different angle. It's like, oh, okay, right? And then he later told me, it's like Disney guys say this all the time. You know, they'll say it's hard to draw Mickey's ears in perspective. Well, then don't do it, man. So like if I'm making adjustments to your drawing or maybe moving the pose or etc., it's simply to make it look a little bit more visually balanced, right? It's not a criticism per se, and it's also another interpretation in terms of how to visually do it. Well, not really another interpretation. I can also talk about sort of the importance of having a particular action read, as well as there's a couple of other things as well. So if you pose something out, right? Any action pose on the planet. If you pose and if it's awkward to be in that pose, it'll be awkward to draw, and it will look awkward to your audience. That's the rule of thumb, right? So if I'm like, I want to draw a pose like this, oh my God, that feels a bit weird doing that. It's going to look weird, and your audience will be like, what the hell is that character doing, right? So try posing it out. Every pose, even a tense action pose, has to feel natural and comfortable, right? Not all the time, but you know, when you're first learning, it's a really, really good rule of thumb. And I'm getting into visual studies critique. I gotta let you go, guys, because I gotta move on. But before I go, I'll spend 5 minutes and talk a little bit about. Oh no, you know what? I'll let you guys go. Okay, and I will catch up with you guys tomorrow. Where are we now? There's this one. Okay, talk to you guys later. Cheers. Okay, all right, so I forgot, I was still streaming. So that's it for that. I've got drawn into visual arts, visual studies, feedback and critique. I want to deal with that during visual studies class, so we'll take it from there. So like I said, there are a lot of better car modelers out there at the moment. But again, what a lot of this covered is some of the rudimentary approaches to polygonal modeling and to nerve space modeling. Believe me, there's a whole bunch of different approaches, right? I don't even teach subdivision surface modeling anymore because that's kind of fallen out of favor. But we'll move into digital sculpting as well with ZBrush and a little bit of Blender sculpting, although I'm just, you know, getting comfortable with Blender. So probably on the same ride as you guys out there who are actually behind a lot of you guys who are probably seasoned Blender artists. But really, it's about the sculptural approaches that I bring when attacking digital clay and what I'm looking for, which you guys might have had a taste of with my cartoon Hulk, which I still need to finish. So you might have a little bit of that kind of exposure to what I'm thinking. So the best digital sculpting tools on the planet are ones that you can pick up straight away and are right into the mindset of creating art, and you don't even have to think technically. And so the Blender sculpting sort of context does it for me. It's really, really good. It's just not snappy or responsive, right? ZBrush is a little bit quicker in terms of latency that I find. But other than that, that's no hit on Blender. I think Blender is just a wonderful sculpting tool. So we'll get into that sort of next semester. Okay, I will let you guys go. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and I will